at what we found. It's a big sound in a small town. Far from the bright lights, they're making music every night. Hear what is all around. It's a big sound in a small town. It's a big sound in a small town. It's a big sound in a small town.
Hi, and welcome to Big Sound Small Town. I'm your host, Sandy Carlton, and this is a podcast about the lives and stories of the musicians, writers, artists, and their associates that have their roots in the small towns and communities across America. If you like what you hear, tell somebody. Enjoy.
Came into his own received him not. The word inside a body, the lamb without a spot. He tried and tried to tell them, he said, I am the way, but they couldn't understand how that he could say, I am the Son of God, I am the vine, and I am the good shepherd, and I know which are mine. I am the light, and with you I will be. And when they ask if he was Jesus, he said, I am he. He is I am, he is I am, he is I am. I am nothing without him. Now Moses on the mountain, he questioned God the same. Who will I say sent me? What is your name? Father said, go tell them I am sent you, and you know that I'll be with you, and I'll show you what to do. He is I am, he is I am, he is I am. But I'm nothing without him. He is the resurrection. He is the way. He said that he'd be with me, and he still is today. He is I am, he is I am, he is I am, but I'm nothing without him. He is I am, he is I am. Hello, I'm Kevin Street, and I'm here with Sandy Carlton with Big Sound Small Town.
I tell you what, I could listen to you do that all day long.
I've heard that a lot.
You know, that's,
yeah. Well, thanks.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. That's a Mark Wheeler wrote that song with the Marksman Quartet.
Okay, that's
We recorded it in the early 2000s, and then I know Mike Upright actually recorded it not too many years ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who would that been with when you did that?
The Far City Boys.
Yeah,
I
okay.
spent most of my time, most of my musical time with the Far City Boys.
You want to go ahead and talk about them right off the bat here?
Well, I can. We started as a group when I was 15 years old. Prior to that, when I was 14, well, I couldn't play or sing nothing up until I was 14 years old. I did play the trumpet in the school band, and I must have been pretty good at it because in the 7th grade I was part of the high school marching band.
Yeah, I'd say so.
They invited me to be a part of that, and I went to their camps and different things like that. So I did play the trumpet. I was taking lessons with the trumpet. So, but I was very interested in singing. My sister could sing at age 5, not like a kid, but like a kid, but a very matured voice kid. Right. And I wanted to sing really bad, but I remember, and I've been around bluegrass music my entire life, even while I was in the womb. My grandpa played, my dad played, but I remember trying to. We would every time you got in a car, bluegrass music was playing. Right. My dad played it constantly, and I knew the songs by heart, and I remember trying to sing to them, and my dad would be like, "That's not good," you know. And at that time, I couldn't hear. Music sounded like a big sound,
right.
Big sound, small town.
Yeah,
but it sounded
right.
like. And it's hard to, unless it's a player that knows that they came around and learned how to play by ear.
Right.
They don't realize that before you can hear that, it sounds like one sound. You can't hear the chord changes, and you don't hear the different notes. It's
really?
One sound. And at that time, that's the way it was. And Dad'd say, "Can you not hear them changing chords?" You know, and right. I'd be like, "No, I can't hear it." And so he would say, "If you can't do no better than that, just don't." You know, he didn't want to hear it, and so I was terrible. And I don't claim to be excellent now, but but when I was 14 years old, I was in a car accident with my uncle, and I went through the passenger door window. It was a head-on collision, kind of at an angle, and so I went through the passenger side window and hit the other truck and landed in the road. My uncle got killed in the car wreck.
Oh, that's terrible.
I stayed in the hospital for about 2.5 months. And while I was in the hospital, of course, at 14 years old, you think, I guess, as being that person, you think you're pretty grown or whatever, but they had to do something to keep me occupied because I was bedridden with right. a broken femur and all that stuff. So Dad brought me, at that time, CD Walkman up there so I could listen to bluegrass music and that's all I ever listened to, really, growing up, was it. Other kids was listening to country or rock and roll right. and stuff like that, and I never really listened to any of that until I was a lot older. And but while I was in the hospital bed listening to that bluegrass music, I thought, man, for whatever reason, the thought came over me about, really learning to play and sing. And early on, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I got a fiddle for Christmas.
Right.
And that was a disaster.
Yeah.
Couldn't play that at all. My sister got a mandolin. We ended up trading.
Right.
She don't play anything, and I could chop the mandolin a little bit. But so they actually brought the mandolin up there, and I was chopping the mandolin in the hospital room to the CD Walkman. And once I got out of the hospital in 1994, around about May of 1994, I got out of the hospital. I had a long road. I had to wear a body cast, and then I had to walk with a cane and all this stuff. So I couldn't just jump back into
right.
life. But once I got to where I could walk on my own and all, I talked my dad into getting me a guitar. And he said, "I'll get it if you're going to really learn how to play it." And so
we took my trumpet.
Right. Yeah.
And we went to a place in Canton, North Carolina, very familiar. Strains Music, I can't remember.
Might be.
In Canton, and we traded that trumpet for a Washburn guitar. And come home, and I really got with it. And but I was learning on my own. I never took any lessons, which I probably should have. But we didn't take no lessons. But by October of 1995, I went on stage for the first time with the Far City Boys. My grandpa, Jim Street, and Dad, Mike Street, and a guy named Chris Coon was playing the mandolin. And I think they primarily did that just for me.
Sure, yeah.
From that, somewhere in the mix of all that, I started. I mean, there was nights where I sat in a chair while my grandpa was on the side of his bed playing his banjo, and he was very patient with me.
That's good.
He'd play all these banjo tunes, and I still couldn't, at that time, I couldn't hear. I had to learn how to hear.
Right.
And so how I learned to hear was he would say, well, if my fingers do this, well, I'm in this chord.
Right.
And that kind of thing. So I started watching him change chords, and I would change chords, and over time I learned to be able to hear those.
Right.
And so and there was one time where I went in there and I was like trying to learn how to play lead on the guitar, and my grandpa said, you ain't figured out how to play rhythm yet. You probably need to stick with that. So he never did tell me that I figured out rhythm. So I never did go into any lead picking. So I'm just a rhythm player, and we started in 1995 when I was 15 years old, and I don't know how much you want to talk about that.
Yeah, we need to talk about it.
But we went, we didn't go through many musicians for a long time.
Who would it have been then? Just the same people you just named?
In 1995, it was my dad, Mike Street, played bass. I played guitar, and my papa, Jim Street, played banjo, and Chris Coon played the mandolin. And that came about because Chris was playing in a group with my papa already.
Okay.
And they'd been playing. I mean, my grandpa had been playing all his life, and so was Dad. And Dad had a group, and they kind of was up in the air, both sides. Dad and Papa was kind of up in the air what they were doing, so they just started it with me. And from 1995 for about a year, it was like that.
Were you singing during that time?
Yeah, I'd learned how to. I don't know how good it was, but I'd learned how to, halfway stay in pitch. I mean, I sound like a youngin',
Right.
And probably sometimes still. I listen to some of those older recordings, and I'm like, God, I was a baby.
Well, you were kind of. I mean, you were pretty young.
15 years old. And I went from nothing to that.
Oh yeah, that was a jump. I mean,
yeah, and it was like I don't know what. I mean, I believe it was a God thing.
Yeah, I think it must have been. I mean,
and I don't know if God wanted me to go through something to appreciate life or whatever. I mean, even at 14 years old, I wasn't doing things I ought to be doing.
Yeah, I understand about that.
And so, but just from maybe June or July of '94 to not knowing nothing,
right,
to going on stage in October of '95, it's pretty quick.
Did it scare you when you did it the first time?
Being on stage at a bluegrass crowd, to be honest, I never really got nervous doing it. But when we started playing in churches,
yeah,
is when, at first it was really nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure
bad.
It was. Yeah.
But from '95 to '96, we had to get out and let people know who we were. That was, we might have had a bag cell phone or something, but there definitely wasn't no social media or nothing like that. And back then, there's still places like the Old Fort Jam going on, and Bill Young's Spruce Pine, and Shindig on the Green, and different things like that. And we would go to those things, and we'd do fiddlers conventions and get people to know who we were and that kind of thing. And somewhere between 95 and 97, we ended up bringing a guy on playing dobro for us by the name of Dave Withrow.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Burke County, I believe, and at that point we won the Civic Center, the Asheville Civic Center competition in '97, and we had I guess I could go ahead and jump in 2000. Rough situation, tough situation. I ended up getting born again, asking the Lord to save me.
Right.
And when that happened, I had my desires changed.
Right.
And, I wanted to play gospel music. We had always incorporated gospel music.
Yeah, the times I saw you during that time, you played bluegrass, but you also played gospel.
Yeah, we always incorporated it, and but the Lord changed my desires, and I just wanted to play gospel music. And when I told the guys that, nobody really had a big problem with it, but my papa was old school,
right.
and his daddy was a preacher. And his daddy was a preacher, and his daddy that was a preacher, he rode on horseback from place to place and preached, and my papa was like...
a circuit rider.
Yeah. My papa was like, banjo ain't got no place in the church house. So at that point...
fiddle don't either.
Yeah, I was thinking, does a banjo have a place anywhere?
Yeah, really, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, Earl.
Yeah, sorry, Earl. But, so my grandpa at that time, he switched over to dobro, and we brought on a guy by the name of Philip Jenkins, and he'd always been a family friend. He came on board and played banjo, and my papa played dobro. So as long as my papa wasn't playing the banjo,
yeah, exactly,
he was good to go.
That's a great story. Yeah.
But it didn't last long, because we started getting really busy at that point. We recorded our first album. Once we started getting really busy to where we was playing a lot, Papa had already done that, so he didn't care much about going and going and going. Right. So he kind of fell off, and it was a 4-piece there for a while, and things led to another, and Philip was gone, and we asked Roger to come on board, and when Roger Holland came on board, we decided it was time to make a CD, and we didn't have no money.
Oh, yeah.
And it costs money to make CDs, and we had some recording equipment, kind of like what we got here today, and we got over to Isothermal Community College and recorded our first recording there at the college, and I, per se, had never been in the studio, but at this point, my dad had been in the studio numerous times. But the way we had to record it was one take, Jake, or nothing, and we'd gather around one microphone, and we'd play, and we'd sing, and we'd go back and listen to it, and if it was good, it was good. If it wasn't, we had to go through the whole entire song again, and so that took a little while, but we got it together. We got a girl by the name of Ashley Brown. She was fiddle player. I can't remember how I ran across her, but she came and played fiddle on a couple of those tunes, and so we finally got it done, and we got them duplicated, and we started selling those, and was able to raise enough money and stay busy to record another one with a guy here in Shelby. And I thought of his name. I got it right now. I remember now. But he had a studio, and they did he worked over at the Shelby Music Center. This would have been 2001 or 2002 maybe, and he worked over at the music center, or Shelby Music Center, and his name was Tracy Curry.
Yeah, I know Tracy. He just did the show not too long ago, just a couple weeks ago.
Really? Yep. Okay, I hadn't seen him since then.
He's still working as a musician, still has a studio.
Wow, yeah, so we got talking to him. He's like, you come record at our house. So it was in his basement, and we did that, and worked us out a really good deal, and it turned out really good. I think it was Tracy's first bluegrass recording, and it turned out really good. It was called That Far, Far City. It's a blue album, and the song that I sang in the beginning here, I've just recently started singing it again because I got that CD out and was listening. It was on there. We recorded it up
You
there.
forgot about it.
I forgot about the song, and then it's ended up being one of my favorites. But, and we just kept on going in churches, and it got to where seems like we wanted to do more and more, and I wanted to do. I think they pretty much was doing it all for me at this time, and we had tried to get on. We thought, well, we need to be on a record label and get somebody to help push us out a little further so that we don't have to keep going to the same places over and over. And we tried to get on with a little recording outfit in Bessemer City called Sun Sound, and it didn't work out the first time. And then after just a little while, I think it was 2005, we went back to Sun Sound, and it worked out, and we did another CD called A Cross for a Crown, and that's when our music started going on the radio.
Okay.
And then that's when, we started playing in 80 to 100 churches a year.
Right.
And
were you doing gospel sings at that time too?
That was full. That was full gospel from the time. I got born again, and I told them that I wanted to play gospel music. We played primarily all gospel music,
right,
and we didn't play any bluegrass. There was times there in the beginning of the transition that we could still go and play some fiddlers conventions, and we'd do some bluegrass music for fun.
Right.
But at that point, we was all gospel, and we, started doing the quartet conventions and different things like that.
Yeah.
Do the Bluegrass Jamboree at the Quartet Convention in Louisville, and it was in Louisville at that time.
Right.
And so just that ain't really where it stopped, but right at that point, that band was, we had brought Philip Jenkins back at that point to play lead guitar.
Right.
Because I had been listening to the Primitive Quartet and some of them other groups.
Yeah, I know those guys.
I got to listen to that guitar playing. Mike Riddle was playing that guitar stuff, Riddle. And I was thinking, and being a musician and having a band, you're always thinking strategically, especially if you want to stay busy. So I was listening to them, and I was like, well, they got this and this and this, so maybe we need to try that. And I knew Philip could play a guitar, and so I asked him to come on board. So he recorded that Cross for a Crown CD, which is a song that I wrote, the Lord allowed me to write. And I wrote that Far, Far City as well. And so it was Philip Jenkins, Roger Holland, my dad Mike, and Chris Kuhn was still on the mandolin at that time. And after that, we kept trying to get better.
Right, of course.
And so a guy by the name of Aaron Ramsey,
I know Aaron Ramsey,
Morganton, he at that time was playing with Mountain Heart, and he had a studio in his house, his dad's house,
Mike.
Basement.
Mike.
Mike Ramsey, and talked to Aaron about doing a recording there. And that we got started on that recording probably in 2007.
Okay.
And we got down there and started recording, and I'm telling you right now, even though we were in the basement, that was make you or break you situation. Aaron and I produced it, and I was like, Aaron, you do and say whatever needs to be said in order to make this thing. We want to be better.
Right.
And so Aaron's got, if he don't have perfect pitch, he's very close.
He
to
does have
perfect,
pretty close to it. I agree.
Yeah. And so, like he can hear, if we're playing a song in B, and somebody's singing, he knows what note they're singing in just by listening.
Right.
And so when it was off, I mean, he would hit the stop button, and it was overdub, overdub, overdub.
Yeah.
And so through that process, it got a little tough on some people, I think, maybe. And Chris and Roger both fell off in the middle of that recording. And for whatever reason, they ain't no hard feelings, never has been. So there we were, me and Dad and and Philip.
Right.
And it's like, we're in the middle of a recording. What are we going to do? Well, Aaron's like, we decided we're just going to finish the recording.
Yeah.
Worry about band members later.
Right.
Because Aaron could play anything.
Anything, yeah, he can.
And so we just kept working on it. And through the middle of working on it, we ended up bringing in a guy by the name of Michael Ballard, a left-handed mandolin player who plays a right-handed mandolin upside down.
I understand about that.
And
I know a guitarist like
he
that.
came on board, and he got to do a song or two on the recording, and then a buddy of his named Eric Duncan came on board playing banjo. And while we were there, Aaron had played with the Randy Coors some, so we decided to get Randy to play some dobro on it. So I always wanted to try to portray everything live, or anything that was on CD. If somebody listened to the CD and you come to play live, I'd like to be as close to that as I can.
Right.
So it was like, we need a dobro player. So we ended up finding a guy by the name of Eric Childers out of Alexander County. He played dobro. We finally got that CD finished in 2009.
Wow.
It was a 2-year process, and I told Aaron, I said, I'm fixing to present this CD to a little bigger label than what we've been dealing with. And I wouldn't say that I didn't know whether they was who it'd be, but I was going to present it to somebody. And Aaron's like, whatever you do, don't tell them that we recorded this thing by a wood stove in a basement.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
He said, okay. He said, don't even bring that up.
Right.
And so I met up with Dave Moody in Nashville, Tennessee, one weekend and played him the CD, and he put it on Lamont Records. And it wasn't long after it was released, and we was in. I remember Philip brought one of his boys with him. And I think we were in Ohio somewhere at a Dunkin' Donuts for sure, because I remember asking for an iced coffee, and it was a disaster. I remember it just like it was yesterday. And his boy had his cell phone out at that time. And he said, Daddy, look. And he said, I can get y'all's songs on a ringtone on Verizon. And we was like, really?
I mean, that's cool. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, when that happens, that is really cool.
Yeah, and I was like, really? That's cool. And I remember I was putting in a septic tank with my brother-in-law at that time in Alexander County, and I got a phone call from Dave Moody. He said, hey, I'm fixing to present y'all's CD for Bluegrass Gospel Album of the Year for the Dove Awards. He said, I don't know if it'll make it's got to go through 2 cuts, but I don't know if it'll make it, but I want to let you know that I'm going to present it. I said, oh, really? You know, I said, okay,
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. And about a month passed, and he called me back. He said, you made the first cut, so one more cut, and you're on the ballot. I said, okay. And a little time passed, and he called me back and said, you're on the ballot. So we was nominated in 2010 for the Dove Award, Bluegrass Gospel Album of the Year. Of course, we was invited to the show, and we got to sit on the front row of the Opry. Nobody knew who we was when we got there.
Sure.
Nobody knew who we was when we left.
Yeah, well.
The Isaacs won the
Of course.
won the deal. And
you can't feel bad losing to the Isaacs.
No, And we had played some shows and things with them down through the years anyway, and it was just good to be a part of it.
Sure it is.
And see how, because it was a live TV taping at the Grand Ole Opry.
Right.
And it was just a good experience. And in 2012, we started a brand new recording. Philip had went on to other things at that time. We brought on a guy by the name of Chevy Watson. We were very busy. We probably was up to over 100 churches a year. Chevy Watson was playing lead guitar at that time. Now Chevy is a full-time musician at Old Smokies and Old Reds and stuff in Pigeon Forge. But we also brought on a drummer. I mean, it just
keep progressing.
Yeah, it was keep on going further and further as we could. And we recorded. Baron Rogers came on with mandolin at that time. Eric Duncan and Michael Ballard. Eric, they're both good Christian boys, both of them. And Michael Ballard had been called to preach, and he was following that calling, which I'm totally for that, because I ran from my calling a lot through the years.
Sure.
And for him to just do what God's called him to do, he's pastoring a church now. And
that's good.
Eric Duncan, every time we'd leave, he'd be like, "Boy, I sure do miss my little girls."
Yeah.
And so he couldn't stay gone, but it was fun while it lasted. But Roger came back during that I've Been Blessed album. He came back, and then Baron Rogers from Waynesville, North Carolina, he came and played mandolin with us, and we was running the roads, running them crazy there for a while, and we recorded another CD back with Sun Sound.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why we went back with Sun Sound, but we did, and we did our very last recording. We didn't know. I didn't have no idea it was going to be our last recording, but it was called "I'll Live Again," or "Live Again" is what we called it, and people thought it said "Live Again," but it was just a catchphrase out of the song title "I'll Live Again," and I thought it was cool, but it caught people off guard at times. We recorded that CD, and in 2012, Roger and Chevy, they had decided that they wanted to, some people had proposed them go and do bluegrass music,
right.
and everybody's not called to do gospel music.
True, that's true.
And I miss playing some bluegrass music a good bit of time, but when they decided to leave, I was just tired of the changing.
Yeah.
And I had my wife, I'd been dating her, and she played piano, and she had played gospel music all her life, and we had already been playing some, and I told Dad, I said, we'll just go and just me and you and her, we'll go and play gospel music and go from there. So in 2012, we started doing that, and ended up, Jennifer and I did that from 12 to 17 or 18 full time.
Right.
Neither one of us worked. We did that full time.
Sure.
We had the babies and had a bus and a different motor home from time to time, and we just did that for a long time. Really had some fun times. We recorded 2 or 3 CDs doing that during that time. Still playing about the same amount of churches.
Yes.
And but somewhere along in the mix, I also was able to play some with Valerie Smith and Liberty Pike out of Nashville.
Yeah.
I think it was back in 2002. We still played the Far City Boys, but we was at IBMA one year, and Becky Buller coming out and said, "Hey, we're going to be needing a guitar player. Would you be interested?" And I said, "I ain't no guitar player. I'm just a rhythm player. I think I like to think I'm more of a singer than anything else." And she said, "Oh, it'll be fine." I was like, "Whatever." So anyway, they gave me some CDs, and I played with Valerie primarily just until Stephen Mogen was moving down from up north somewhere, and I was just there and long enough for Stephen to get moved down and take the position. I couldn't play lead guitar. I still can't. He came down a couple times and showed me a few things that I did while I was traveling with her, but that was fun. Other than that, I'm playing in churches. I'm playing at church right now. I've not traveled in a couple years now, and so maybe closer to 3 years I haven't traveled. But I'm playing at my church and doing what I think God would have me to do.
Do you miss traveling?
I do, and I miss playing bluegrass music.
Yeah, well, it kind of gets in your blood, And bluegrass, there's plenty of room for gospel in bluegrass.
Sure, yeah.
It's
just hard to keep. It's just hard to keep a band together.
It's the worst thing in the world. I mean, you go through. You can keep one together for a pretty good while, but you're going through a lot of members. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, people get tired. Some people don't like the road.
Yeah.
You know, some people just burn out, get tired of the sit up, tear down, you know?
They, you know, and I think a lot of times these real good musicians, I've listened to all these podcasts, and I'm like the least of these in these podcast interviews as far as musicians go. These real good musicians a lot of times, and we've had some good ones over the years. I think, you know, when you're a band and you got stuff on the radio and you got stuff recorded, you go from place to place and you're playing and singing the exact same songs over and over and over.
That's true too,
and
I do know.
They get tired. They feel like
playing
they're
the same thing.
Yeah, they feel like they get stagnant. These real good musicians, you know, I didn't ever have a problem with it. But they want to keep progressing.
Well, you know, that's a good thing too. I mean, you look at we'll take bluegrass for instance. We'll take Ricky Skaggs.
Yeah.
Man, he goes through them, but of course they get to a point where they're ready to go on their own too, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I mean, Becky. If you'll think about Becky, she played with Darren and Brooke.
Right.
You know, and drove all the way from Tennessee to here to do it.
Absolutely.
But then the time came, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, nobody wants anybody to leave them, but time comes sometimes, you know.
It's just time to move on at times.
So
absolutely.
Well, so you're available if somebody wants to.
Yeah, I would be interested. I was talking to my buddy that I haven't laid my eyes on him since 1998, and but his name's Jeff Davis, and he grew up in Morganton. His daddy was Pee Wee Davis, and
oh yeah, I know Pee Wee. I knew Pee Wee.
So I was talking to him on the Facebook Messenger the other night, and I said, man, I really would like to play some bluegrass music. And he said, we can get a jam together. I said, well, where's everybody at? Well, you know, everybody's, you know, it seems like when I was growing up trying to learn to play and still learning to play, still doing something different every day, there was just places to go
there
play,
used to be.
And they just not
It's not.
anymore.
There's not as many bluegrass musicians, and there's not as many young ones as there used to be.
Yep.
I mean,
well, I think, you know, when Morganton was having their Red, White, and Bluegrass Festival,
that helped a lot.
They were having a youth camp, and that thing was slam packed. And I think Mike Ramsey's still helping some young kids. But it's such a different style.
Oh yeah.
There was some people taking some lessons from time to time. Roger Holland gave lessons, you know, over the years, you know, years ago. But most of the time people were just learning on their own.
Sure.
My dad tells me when he was 12 years old, he finally got a bass that he worked for, mixing mud for my pawpaw, to lay brick and block, and he would lay in the bed with that thing all night long, just not even knowing what he was doing, just trying to figure it out.
I dropped needles on a record player over and over and over.
Yeah,
wear those things out.
And so I think that now the kids they're on such a different level because they've got such a jump start.
Sure, they do.
They got the ETSU now.
Yeah, you
kids
do.
Are going to college there for a degree.
Oh yeah, I just had a guy play with the songs from the road band who just graduated from that program.
Right.
He is going to be one fine banjo player. I mean, he is a really fine banjo player, but boy, when he gets a little age on him, he is going to be a beast.
Yeah, sure. And so they're taking it to another level now. I mean,
they are.
It's like they're just jumping like,
and that's
really
good.
Fast. Yeah,
that's good for the music though.
Yeah.
You know, it is. Everybody's just like you. Look to improve your band every time.
Yeah.
You know, I think bluegrass music and gospel music needs to, you know, keep moving forward. That's how you keep it alive.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
sure.
You gonna sing me another song?
Yeah. I was just trying to figure out.
Talk about that guitar. That's a nice looking Martin guitar.
This is, man, how I got this guitar is a chance of circumstance, maybe. So when I got saved, before I got saved, I was into a lot of junk.
Yeah.
And doing a lot of stupid stuff that teenage boys would do. And when I went to work with Valerie Smith, I didn't have a guitar because I had landed in jail. And I had called my dad from jail and said, hey, I had a 1998 Martin guitar, D28, that I'd bought from Shelby Music Center. I said, you need to call them Shuffler boys and sell that guitar and come get me out of jail. So that, I don't remember what year that was, but in 2001, I believe it was, we hooked up, and Valerie called me and said, I need you to be in Nashville a certain amount of time, and I had no guitar. I had no guitar. That's what my pawpaw said. My pawpaw said, you ain't got no guitar.
Right.
All I had was just a little old Guild guitar.
Yeah.
And he said, you can't go to Nashville playing bluegrass music without a Martin guitar.
Yeah.
And so this guitar came from a guy who's been mentioned on this show before, who had this guitar. This is a 1988 D28, not a herringbone. And Vern Berry had this guitar, and my grandpa went and bought this guitar and gave it to me before I headed to Nashville.
Wow.
And since that time, this guitar has been worked on by Snuffy Smith before he passed away.
Right.
The neck fell out of this guitar 3 or 4 times. I've had, I guess, just the road life or my whatever, it's been really rough on it. You can tell by looking. But the last time, actually Snuffy Smith put these vintage Martin tuners on.
I noticed those on there. That was one of the first things I noticed.
And he put those on for me. And he put a new bridge plate in this guitar for me. But the neck fell out not long after he worked on it. It fell out again. And my grandpa was refurbishing or remanufacturing tenor banjos to 5-string banjos at the time, and he was building dobros. So I told Papa, I said, can you put this neck in? He said, I can put it in there, but if I put it in there, it ain't coming out. That means when it's in there, if you ever want it removed, you'll have to saw it off. Right. And so I said, well, the guitar ain't going nowhere. I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm not going to sell it, so let's do it. So he put this neck in. He reset this. This is the same neck. It's just been reset so many times, but he put it back in and put this fretboard on and put new frets in. And he didn't have, I told him don't worry about putting no inlay in. And it's in there. I ain't had no problems. It's straight.
That's great.
And it's good to go now. And so I've had it since 2001. My grandpa gave it to me, and it ain't going nowhere. And it's got a lot of character scars on it. But like I say, I'm not a guitar player, so to speak. I'm just a rhythm player. I was trying to figure out whether to I don't really know if I don't even know a bluegrass tune, I don't guess. Yeah, I guess I do know one. I don't know how to pick it. You know, Tony Rice passed away.
Yes.
Christmas Day of 2020. 2020 was already rough enough, it seemed.
Yeah, that was hard right there.
To have that happen.
I agree.
I've been watching a bunch of tribute videos to Tony Rice, and of course, I have never played not one lick of his. I'm not one of those. I can't play those things, but I don't think that's what God has for me. But he played some really great guitar on this song, which I can't. But I'm just gonna play and sing the song, maybe tribute to him. But him and Skaggs recorded this song, and it's an old bluegrass tune, I guess you'd say. And since I did a gospel song, I'll do a bluegrass tune here. There's more pretty girls than one.
Oh yeah.
There's more pretty girls than one. More pretty girls Any old town that I ramble all around, and there's more pretty girls than one. Well, Mama talked to me last night. She gave me some good advice. She said, son, you ought to quit this old rambling all around. Marry you a sweet, loving wife. Well, there's more pretty girls than one. More pretty girls than one. Any old town that I ramble all around, and there's more pretty girls than one. Honey, look down that old lonesome road. Hang down your pretty head and cry, thinking all about them pretty little gals, hoping that I'll never die. Well, there's more pretty girls than one. More pretty girls than one. Any old town that I ramble all around, and there's more pretty girls than one. Any old town that I ramble all around, and there's more pretty girls than one.
Obviously, you still know how to do bluegrass.
Well, I don't know. It's as Jeff Easter getting around gospel music like we did. You know, I got to meet a lot of people, and one thing Jeff Easter said, that bluegrass music's just straight from the heart through the nose.
It is.
So as long as it's like that, you can get her done.
Well, you certainly did. I appreciate you taking the time to come down here, man. You got a great story.
Well,
is there anything else I need to know?
Anything else you may need to know?
Or my listeners may need to know?
Well, just...
Can they reach out to you if they need a singer?
Absolutely.
Tell them how.
Well, I guess you can go to Facebook, Kevin M. Street on Facebook, or, well, if you want to call me, it's 828-744-2804. And, yeah, and I guess just if there's any musicians out there listening, and I just say, you know, there's been a lot of great musicians on these podcasts, really great pickers, and, you know, we're all different.
We are.
And, you know, whether we've had lessons or not, it's a talent that God gives us. And I'm going to just tell you, just strive to do what you can do, and do the best at what you can do, and be good and be all right with that.
Yeah.
Because that's what God wants for you. He intends for you to do what He's called you to do. Everybody's got to be different.
True.
We can't all play the same. We ain't gonna play the same. We ain't all gonna sing the same. And music touches people, so you've got what God wants you to have, and be proud of it and do the best you can.
Those are some great words.
Well, I've had to tell myself that over the years, you know. So
I have to tell myself all the time. But thank you again. It's great.
You're welcome. You're welcome.